Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. I am Ken Tucker, and I'm your host today. And I'm joined by Jen by video, Ian and Paul live. Today, we're going to be talking about your homepage and your About page and why these two pages are so important and what key elements you need to have on them. These are the two pages that get most of the traffic from most websites, and so they're super important. These pages, should serve more than just being a digital brochure. It's really your 24/7, 365 salesperson. It's available all the time, and it's that first level of sales. And it represents, these two pages in particular are very important in the way they represent your company. So to get things started, I've got a video that I wanted to kind of launch that just kind of talks about some of the key points about websites. So here we go. You need on your home page and on your About page. But before we do that, I wanted to just kind of cover a couple of other critical things that we need to address. So most websites have a tendency to put a premium on design, but they miss many key elements. And yet 92% of consumers are going to visit a brand's website for the first time for reasons other than making a purchase. Um, it's clear that the most important resource that people are using when they're trying to find a local business is doing search engine optimization. And so your website is absolutely critical for that. Websites don't live in a vacuum. And, we need to think about not only the design, but also the structure, the elements, the content, all of that feeds the search engine optimization capabilities. And so it's really important to think about getting all of the right elements on your website. A lot of people say, okay, well, with Google My Business or Google Business Profile, as it's now called, um, I don't really need a website. If I can show up in the map results, that's all great. Well, first of all, it's hard to show up in the map results if you don't have a quality website. But second of all, local businesses are going to trust the details from a business website more than they're going to trust Google My Business or online directories. So again, they may find you because of that Google Map listing, but they're going to go to your website and check you out and make sure you're legit. Only 8% of consumers never look at a website before they choose a local business, and 50% of consumers would be deterred from contacting a business if information about their website was out of date. So I just wanted to kind of set this conversation up. Your website, and especially your homepage and your About page, are really, really critical. And so now we're going to move over to the point where I get to ask the great panel the questions. Thanks. All right, so let's get going here. Ian, I'm going to start with you. Way too many websites are not clear in what they really do. That's obvious and crystal clear when a website visitor lands on the website. So let's focus on the area that we commonly refer to as the hero section. First of all, explain what that is, and then what are the critical elements that need to be at the very top of the page.
Sure. Yeah. And just to reiterate the importance of this section, first impressions are super important to us in life in general. And of course, when somebody gets to your website, first impressions mean a lot. And your website is the face of your business, and your hero section is the face of your business, right? Like, it's what people see first, and it gives them the first impression. So the hero section is really, really important, and it needs to be good. So a hero section is really the first section just below the navigation, usually on most websites. And it's what the prospect sees first. It's above the scroll, or above the fold, as we say, using a traditional marketing or design term, in newspapers where the paper was folded over. So you want to see the cover first, right? You want to see the hero section. You don't want information to bleed off of that section. But it really is a vital section. I'll go into the details of what best practices to include in the hero section, but that's essentially what it is. It's that first welcome to your website. So there are some best practices of what to include in a hero section. And most hero sections that are successful have 4 key elements. The first one is a headline, and that headline is really a promise and your core difference. So it's usually a combination. And then you have supportive copy below that. And then you have a key call to action. That's your core call to action that you want people to make, your most important call to action. And then, some sort of compelling photo or visual that supports your message. So let me go into a little bit more detail about those elements. So the headline of your promise to the customer, here's what we're going to do for you if you hire us. It's super important. You need to show them that, first of all, you understand who they are. You're speaking directly to them as a prospect. You understand their challenges and you're able to solve them. So that's usually what the promise or the core difference statement that's in that headline really entails. It's setting you apart from the competition, and it's very clearly showing how you're going to solve their problem and bring transformation into their life, right? That can mean enormous things in different industries. For some, it might just be, we will beautify your house. I have some examples actually that I'll share later on, but there's so much you can do in that. Then you usually have supportive copy, which could just be some bullet points, key bullet points, because you made a bold claim. Above that, you made a promise, you spoke to a core difference. Now it's about how do you support that claim? And it's usually a couple sentences, maybe 4 bullet points max. And it's to convey in a powerful way that you get what they're going through and you can help. And again, it's designed to differentiate you from the competition. Your call to action is the next element. That's the third element out of the 4. And this is usually a button, right? It's usually a button. It could take a different form if you so choose. But it's exactly, you should be driving people to do exactly what you hope they will do, which is your highest valued action. So for a lot of companies, that might be a click to call, a book an appointment, a get a quote, right? Those are usually kind of the highest value calls to actions for a lot of businesses. But just remember to make it super clear, make it easy, and make sure it aligns with your ideal outcome. And then finally, compelling photo or visual. Pictures speak louder than words, right? Quite often, we are like a lot of people are very visual, and so you need your visual to communicate the transformation that you offer in some way, and it sets the tone for your whole page. So what your hero section imagery appears like will probably, or it should, set the tone for the visuals that follow, the color choices, if you're using stylized illustrations in your hero section, you'll probably use stylized illustrations throughout your website. And it has to impact your visitor visually, convey what you do, and just make sure it makes sense and aligns with your core message. But if you get those 4 things right in your hero section, it seems silly to go on and on about the hero section like this, because it's so, like, once you get it, it's pretty darn simple. But I'm amazed, Ken, and I'm sure you and Paul and Jen, who's not with us today, I'm sure I think in discussion I've heard that you guys are amazed as well at the number of times you go to competitors' websites or customer's website when you're first starting working with them or doing an audit, and you see how businesses are not doing stuff like this, and how vanilla and lackluster it makes that first impression.
Yeah. I think about from a StoryBrand perspective, we look at the transformation is critical, right? So the picture shouldn't be about a leaky toilet and showing a toilet overflow if you're a plumber or a water restoration company or whatnot. It should show success. It should show happy customers after they've transformed, after they've experienced your services. And having a crystal clear message about what you do and the problem you solve, so that Duct Tape has a phrase and StoryBrand has a phrase. Duct Tape, you might have to help me with that one, Ian, but StoryBrand talks about the grunt test. Within 3 to 5 seconds, when you look at that homepage, you need to be able to grunt out what it is that business does and how they solve that problem. And if you can't do that, you may have lost people, because people are, there's nothing that's going to hold them to stay on your website other than the way you design it and the content that you put on it. And so it's absolutely critical. I'm drawing a blank on the duct tape phrase, but it's basically, if you cover up, all of the branded information, and you looked at the homepage, could you tell whether it was yours or another business? If you just heard somebody read it back to you, So keep those things in mind. And the whole purpose of the hero section is to address those things.
Yeah. And Ken, just to reinforce what you said about the visual, like a great example, or one thing I'd love to tell our listeners is, when possible, include people in your photos, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to empathetically feel what it's going to be like to feel the solution you provide. So an example, a great StoryBrand example is a home organizer, right? A lot of home organizers would just show some really nice rooms that are organized, but the ones that get it, and the example of StoryBrand is, no, you show a mother playing with her daughter in front of a totally organized playroom, and smiling and laughing, and that's what's going to impact people, because that's what they want to feel. And if you can convey feelings, and if you can help them feel that transformation of what they want, because after they click off your website, they're going to go play with their daughter, and they're going to be in a messy playroom, and they're going to be like, man, I want to be that person, right?
Yeah. Well, my first thought is, a lot of home organizers might just have a really cluttered, disastrous looking room as a picture on the at the top of their homepage, and that's a big mistake in our opinion.
Yeah.
Ian talked a little bit about calls to action, and I think he talked about one really important one, but there are actually a couple of things that you need to think about in terms of calls to action. What should you think about having at the top of your website? And also, should you have a pop-up call to action on your website?
Yeah, you might have a couple different types of calls to action. I think you should have, at the very least, you should have the phone number in your main navigation. You want your phone number especially if you're a service area business, you want your phone number at the very top, because people tend to call them. But if you have a calendar where people can go to your calendar and book an appointment, you would want that at the top of your web page as well, maybe in the main navigation, maybe in the hero section. But that doesn't mean that you don't place them throughout the page. A lot of people go to a website just for the contact information, so you want that up at the top so it's right there immediately. But some people are going there for information, so that doesn't mean you don't place your CTAs throughout the website as well, or maybe in the sidebar. If your website has a sidebar, is a good place to put them. And there's different types of calls to action. You have your what we call transitional calls to action, such as downloading an ebook or a checklist. And then there's the direct calls to action. That's the call now, or the phone number, or the book an appointment, schedule an estimate. Those are your direct calls to action. A pop-up, they irritate me, but there's a lot of data out there that says they work. I think the exit, as it's called, exit intent pop-ups, when you're going to leave that page, then it pops up. I think those can be effective, but I think that depends on the person visiting the website. Some people it's not going to bother, some people it irritates, but like I said, there's data that says it works, so I wouldn't completely dismiss it.
Yeah, I mean, and there are controls that you can put on that so that if a website visitor comes back, with several times within a particular period, you don't always have to have that pop-up come up.
Yeah, you can have it set like every week or every 10 days or whatever.
Yeah, which can become really annoying. So, okay, so now I'm getting an echo from someone. I'm going to ask Jen a question, and Jen has recorded a video answering this. Basically, what I asked Jen is, to just talk about how important it is to have pictures and video and/or video of the people in the business on the homepage, and why are these better than having stock photos? So here we go.
So my question is, how important is it to have pictures and videos of the people in the business on the website? And are these more effective than stock images, and why? So yes, it is important. If you're running a business, it's very important to have the images, the photos, the videos of yourself, the business owner, your team, your support staff, partners, strategic alliances on your website. It's important because people, your potential customers, want to know who they are working with. Now, in this day and age, it is very common to have businesses set up that use freelancers, that use contract workers, that use folks that are just in on certain projects, but they're not full-time employees. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that. So you can have those folks on your website. You can talk about them as, they're a freelancer on many different projects, or they're project specific for this, specific long-term project. It's quite common these days, so don't worry about that at all. The toughest thing we have seen is, whether you're a freelancer or an employee, is people getting their picture taken. So, I mean, that's a whole different ballgame from anything to do with your website. So what we would recommend is, if you've got the full-time employees, you as the business owner, you spring for headshots for your team. It is an investment in your team. People are going to look good. If it's done with a professional photographer, you're all going to get the same continuity. You're really going to look like a team. It is an investment, but it is worth making. We know folks that have gotten a really good headshot and they use it for years, and they're really happy to show it off. And to have a professional headshot that someone is very happy to have, shown around, it is a great thing. Now, having said that, on the headshot thing, I do want to talk a little bit about stock photography. So having stock photography to replace images of your staff, I would recommend against 100%. If you're not going to choose to show your staff, you could do something with a caricature. You could do something with avatars. But don't use stock photography images of people to make it seem like that's your team. There's no way I would recommend doing that. If your team is too shy or does not want to be photographed, there's other ways like avatars and whatnot to put it up. There's other write-ups you could do if it really comes to that. Where I was going with stock photography as well is, it is possible and it is okay to use stock photography on your website for other pages. Not all of us can afford to have a professional photographer come in every month and be doing a photo shoot of what's going on in the office, or a photo shoot specific for every blog and whatnot. So you can use stock photography. Oftentimes, if you choose the stock photography, please make sure you're buying it from a reputable source. Please make sure you're buying it, purchasing the right license, and your graphic design team is able to manipulate stock photography. So what that could mean is zooming in and cropping a stock photograph so it looks a little bit different, using certain filters and transparencies so it looks a little bit different, putting some branding on the photograph so it's like branded to you guys, your company. So there are some possible ways to use stock photography in other places of your website, but never, ever, ever to replace your team.
Just about like a live appearance right there. So
That's right.
thanks, Jen. It's really important. I mean, based on the nature of your business, I think it's really, really important. If you're going to be a business that goes into people's homes, you really should have pictures of your team and your crew, ideally in logoed attire, on your homepage and on your about page. I just think that that's absolutely critical. Ian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Where it's challenging is, I've worked with, say, a carpet cleaning company who they had some photos of their team, not very professional. The lighting was horrible. You certainly don't want the lighting, like you don't want their trucks to be dirty. You don't want the light to be dim when they're photographing their team cleaning a carpet, because you want to see the dramatic difference it can make. So in circumstances like that, if you can't, if absolutely, the business should invest in good photography for themselves, and it can be used in multiple places, but especially on their website. But where it can't be used or where they don't have it, I would almost never halt the development of a website, because it's too important, right? You need to get your online presence built and generating equity as quickly as possible. And so in those circumstances, for sure, I would sparingly and wisely use stock photography that's licensed appropriately, as Jen said,
Right.
so you don't get lawsuits or legal fees associated with them. But again, they have to be chosen very wisely in order to convey the message you're trying to get across. And yeah, be careful about what the people look like. Because one of the things I find, maybe you find this, Ken, is, when you're looking for stock photography for a window installer, a roofer, a carpet cleaner, these stock catalogs come from all around the world. So you'll see people wearing uniforms that you've never seen worn in North America, because it's not a common attire, right? They might be wearing suspended outfits, right? And you're just like, that doesn't really convey who we are. So you need to be careful about what you choose. But yeah,
That's a great point. I mean, and it's like sometimes even some of these stock photos are kind of racy, which is like, seriously, who paints a house looking like that? It's like you don't want
the
it to
guy's
be
flexing as he paints the
yeah. You don't want your pictures and images or videos to be a distraction. You want them to be an enhancement and to help people visualize their experience. So when bad photographs, and bad photography can be a real negative. Ian, let's move to the credibility and trust section. At least that's what I call them. You may call them something different. But why are these important? And can you give us some examples of what might go in these sections?
Yeah, for sure. These are pretty simple in concept, but you do need to think about what elements have the greatest impact in the eyes of your customers and prospects. Again, it's, everything you do on your website should be for them, not for you as a business. And even if you're focused on hiring people, because I think that's worthy of comment these days, because a lot of people are focused on hiring people, that should be a separate section, first of all. But also, it shouldn't be about your business. It should be about the person you're trying to attract. It's always about the prospect and the customer. So, these sections are designed to reduce barriers, prove you do what you say you'll do, right? And that you have happy, satisfied customers. So, I split these into two sections when we're building websites. One I call the authority and credibility trust section. That's kind of a combination of a whole bunch of different terms that different people use for that section. But And then the second one is testimonials and social proof trust section. So the authority and credibility trust section, think of these as the elements that support that you can do, excuse me, indeed what you say you can do, and that you're really good at it. Might be your accreditations, might be the associations you're involved in. It might be the awards you've won as a business. You can include local Chamber of Commerce logos. If you've been an expert on local TV or on radio stations, you can include those local logos. It's all about building credibility as visually and quickly as possible with your viewer, because and it's almost about brand elevation, right? You're using the credibility of those associations, those groups, those media channels to raise the view of your credibility just by association. So that's the first section. The Better Business Bureau I didn't mention, but for sure those kind of things are very powerful. The second section is the testimonials and social proof trust section, and this is where you leverage the power of other people, customers, past customers, current customers, saying amazing things about your business, because it's always more powerful to have other people say amazing things about you than you saying amazing things about yourself. It's just more authentic. So handpick your best, most impactful testimonials and share them. You see a lot of websites where it's got a scrolling banner of testimonials, or you might just highlight the top 3 that you want to focus on. And then if you have generated video testimonials, this is a fantastic place to include one of those or 2 of those, because video is very, very powerful. So yeah, those, again, pretty simple concept. You're trying to just, really convey something very quickly to the viewer. They might not even consume the information by digesting it in, one logo at a time, but just having it there really supports that you do a great job and you're credible.
What are your thoughts about, if you're a B2B type business, putting logos of customers that you've done work for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's brand elevation, right? So, if because for a lot of businesses, they are lesser known than their customers, right? They might be behind the scenes, supporting a larger business that's more well known, right? If I was the advertising agency for Apple, I'd be ridiculously stupid not to show that on my website, right? Like, because again, you're elevating your brand through association. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. And you just got to be smart about it. I have seen some websites, especially in marketing, where they have like 30 logos of clients they've done work for. And I'm like, after the first row, I'm not interested. And I don't think their customers would be either.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you're like a software company or something like that, then maybe it's a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, I still wouldn't put it like in a prominent spot. I'd probably put it more, lower on the page, is almost right above the footer, right? Which most people tend to not pay attention to. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you run into any pushback from any of your clients in terms of putting any of that kind of stuff on their website because they're afraid that it's going to divulge a competitive advantage they have, or or it's like, I don't want to list my customers because somebody might come along and try to poach them, and it's like,
yeah, I think that's more of an internal fear that we all have as business people. So when we're sharing logos of satisfied customers, potentially you are opening yourself up. I mean, I can say as an agency, when I see other agencies in my area who are really bad at certain things like SEO, and they're posting their customers online and they're in a particular niche that I'm focused in, I'll like check out their clients' websites and go, oh my goodness, like maybe I should contact these guys. They need help. But I think overall you're pretty safe, and if you're doing a good job, you don't have to worry about it, right? Like if you've built a strong relationship with your client, then it's very hard to pull away an entrenched partner.
Plus, I think it's going to help you land maybe 2 or 3 other types of businesses like that So
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, it's an irrational fear, I think, too many times.
Yeah.
Paul, let's talk about, we haven't really talked about the nature of a modern homepage, really, but, you know, I think most homepages are now long scrolling homepages, and I think we're all pretty accustomed to that. Because we use social media, we swipe down, on and swipe around on, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever to read these feeds of information. And so, you know, one of the things that I think a lot of people really shortchange, and I'd love your opinion on this too, are their services. How do you describe the services? Do you just, kind of list them all out? Do you highlight the core ones? How do you talk about how those services solve problems for your customer, client, or patient?
Yeah, they should absolutely be on your homepage. I mean, that's what you do. That's what, that's how you make money. And I wouldn't just list them out. This goes back to images. I mean, images are powerful, and you should use images, but you should definitely not use stock images, because one of those stock images may show people, okay, maybe they're painting a house, and whatever they're wearing is not what your crew is going to be wearing when they show up, and that's that's just not good. So you can have even videos about what you do on your homepage, but yes, you should list out your services, do it with images. As far as if you offer a bunch of different services, but some of them it's like, yeah, you do, but they're not high profit margin. uh we have a couple clients that there's things they do, but that they're not going to go out and do it for a new customer. They'll do it for an existing customer. You probably don't want to put those on your homepage and make those prominent. Your core services is really what you want to highlight. And yeah, like you said, people are used to scrolling, and you don't you don't have to have a full, write up of every service you do on your homepage. You can have a picture, summarize what you do, and then have that link to a service page that goes in depth about what's all involved, what the process is. Maybe if it's water restoration, what's the process? What can I expect to happen during this? But the problems you solve, yes, you definitely want to have those on your homepage. There's and we talked about this a little bit, is social proof. You definitely want that in there. The features, and how, we talked about the transformation and how this is going to make your life better or solve your problem. That you definitely want that up there, and you want that up at the top above the fold, as we've talked about. So yeah, that's a long answer to should you have your services on there, but yes, absolutely.
Kind of, you talked about that, and it brings me back something I forgot to follow up with you on when you were talking about the transitional call to action. And I think we need to talk about this a little bit. Not everybody is ready to contact your businesses when they first land on your website.
Most people aren't, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, statistics show like only 4%. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about why you need to do remarketing, because most people don't take action the first time they visit your website, especially where it requires engagement and commitment from them to interact with somebody from your business. And so a transitional call to action is really, a way to get somebody to say, hey, I'm curious, I want to learn more, but I'm not ready to talk to anybody. It's like, you just give me something that's going to help me see if I can solve my problem myself, or understand how you might be able to help me solve my problem, before I want to sit down and use my valuable time to meet with you, or have you come out, to provide an estimate or whatever. So the other thing I wanted to talk about as it relates to, to what you were just talking about, Paul, in terms of services is, I think the power of three is really, really important. I think a lot of people need to try to challenge themselves to operate under the power of three. From a psychological perspective, if you add that fourth thing, in any section that we're talking about, if you add that fourth thing, now you've complicated it and you've decreased the likelihood that somebody may make a decision. So, whether you're describing all of the products or solutions you have, to the extent that you can, try to package those, ideally in group, in threes, because you're going to get typically your best performance. Now, that's not always the case. But it's a really good, solid rule of thumb. All right. We have another
Hey,
question.
Ken,
Yeah.
I just had a quick question for Paul. One of the reasons why we've seen it, and this is kind of a lob ball to you, I think, if you want to use a baseball term, Paul. But one of the reasons why we also include services is, yes, indeed, for the people, but also for the robots, right? For Google, because you want to create that SEO connection between your sub pages, which obviously is in your header, it's in your footer, which we'll talk about later. But it helps to have linkages within your homepage to those services, does it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why if you list your, like I said, if you have an image and a little short description of a service, that should link to a page about that service that goes more in depth. But yes, it's not just important that internal linking. It's not just important for the web bots, the Google bot, and we call it Google bot. Well, Microsoft has the same kind of thing, but it's also important for the users. It helps them navigate your website. And if you have, you should do this anyway, but if you have more than 3 or 4 core services that really do make you money, that really are high profit, then you should really create a services page that kind of acts as a pillar page that links out to all of your services. And all your services should have their own page. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to put them on the home page, but they should still have their own page.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So here we go. I'm going to turn it back over to Jen.
My question here is, how important is it to bring new content to the website? It's very important. It's very important to bring new content to your website regularly, particularly your homepage, because that is typically the first page folks are going to land on. Certainly, if you have your blogs or other information out there around the internet, they can land on that blog page, for example, and then peruse through your website that way. But your homepage typically is the first window into your business. And to update that regularly with news, with information, with the latest blog posts, it's very important to be doing that. Get yourself on a schedule if you're going to do that. First of all, commit to it. Understand that whether you I know it can be a little bit much. You can just feel like, oh my goodness, I've got to do all this website stuff. When am I going to have time to run my business? But like it or not, Google favors fresh content. So get yourself and your team on a schedule. Commit to, can you do once a week? If that's too much, can you do every 2 weeks? Can you do every 3 weeks? The consistency and sticking to the consistency and being able to update your website consistently with new content far outweighs the ability to do it, 3 weeks in a row and then let it go for a whole entire year. So pick some consistency that works for you. We have a lot of our clients on the every 2 week type of plan, and that seems to be working for them very well. It can feel a little daunting, especially when we all get into our busy periods around work, and the last thing you feel like is a priority is your new content to your website. But if you view your website like we do on this panel, which is essentially, it's your 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, salesperson that never sleeps, never rests, is always there for you, always out there promoting your business. Think about that with that kind of priority, and you can make it happen. Some of the things that you could do, you could pull in your featured blog post, whatever cadence is that you're doing a blog. You can find some news around your company. If you have launches, if there's things that are we're celebrating internally, if there is a promotion, if there is a new deal, those are the kind of things that could be considered new information. And just think about promoting them. Think about what are we going to have on the website this cycle, and whether that cycle is every week, every month, every 2 weeks. And we'd probably recommend, if you had to pick one of those, we'd recommend that every 2 weeks.
All right. So, Ian, I'd love your thoughts on, do you pull in blog posts or other content onto your homepage? If so, why do you do that? And do you pull all your, is it just the latest blog post? Is it a category of blog post? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a lot of times for our own websites, because we have a couple, we pull in the 3 or 4 latest blog posts because we're consistently pumping out new content, right? Just as Jen was talking about. For our clients, depending on where they are in their business, right? Because some clients, when we build out their website, they have no blog posts. Even though we're recommending building out blog posts, they might not be there yet, or their blog posts might be from 7 years ago. So in those cases, we generally don't promote those on their homepage until they get to the point of either hiring us to do consistent blog posting, or they're bought into it as a business. But it's tremendously powerful. So, and it's very easy to set up that way, right? Like if you're just pulling in your latest, blog posts, and you can filter them any way you want. So it can be by date, the latest ones. You can do it by category. We tend to do it by date, just so it's the freshest, most recent stuff for our businesses. And that generally is the way we do it for our clients as well. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. It's generally going to be the most recent content. If there's, again, we may periodically filter it based on category.
Right.
As Paul mentioned, if a business has got a bunch of different services, we may really kind of dial that in a little bit. The other thing too, and this takes more work because, once you set up your blog post structure properly on your homepage, it just kind of runs, and all you have to do is publish the post, which is not trivial by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not anything you have to go in and update and change directly on your website. But if you win an award, if you launch a new product, I think having an announcement section, could be a banner across the top of the website, or a call out section on your homepage as people are scrolling down. I think those are important things to do. Even if you bring on a new staff member, if that person is playing a critical or prominent role, that stuff is good to put on the homepage. Don't expect just because you write a press release or something, or even put it as a page on your site, that people are going to find it. They're going to have to, make it easy.
Yeah. And nobody, for some clients, I need to remind them that no one is going to promote your business more than you are. And there's some very humble business owners out there. And I understand that, because I used to be quite sheepish about like tooting my horn, or in the corporate world, tooting my team's horn to the rest of the business. But you do learn over time that you are the advocate for your business, and nobody else will be a better advocate. As good as your referral partners are, and your family, and your satisfied customers, you need to be putting out that information, that if you won an award, if you achieve something, if you produced a new case study, whatever it is, you need to tell the world, because probably nobody else will.
Yeah. And put it on your homepage. It's okay.
Yeah.
So Ian, let's talk about a section that I think is missing on way too many websites, and that's how you make it easy for people to understand what you want them to do next. In StoryBrand, we call it the process section. In Duct Tape, we call it the clear path. talk about what this section is and what do you put on there?
Sure. Yeah. I think really it's two key things. I'm just trying to make sure I'm looking at the right thing here. I think there needs to be a call to action throughout your website. About your process. What I mean by that is you need to have a section that walks people through how they will be transformed by you. And I'll go into a little bit more detail because for some businesses, this can become very complex in their minds. But you need to show your process. And so we actually recommend, I think this is true with StoryBrand as well, like never to go over 4 steps. And if possible, bring it down to 3, like your rule of 3s, even though that's very hard for a lot of businesses. So what you want is for the visitor to understand what a clear process of being your customer, your patient, your client is going to look like. Essentially, you're trying to give them the vehicle to try on what it's like to work with you. And that can be boiled down very simply to get them from point A to point B, from their pain to their solution, your solution. So for many clients, the process we show on the homepage is highly distilled. It's down to the basics, but then it links to a detailed process page for the visitor that they can then click through. So high level on the homepage, more detail if they want to dig deeper into it. And of course, including a video, whether that's on your homepage or on that process page, can be very powerful, right? Because again, it's more authentic. You're walking people through it. But here's an example, just so people understand what we're talking about here. This is actually from a real remodeling company that we worked on their website for. And it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So step 1 is we listen to your vision for your space. So that's what they do. That step 1 is we will listen to you. Step 2 is we will prepare a project estimate and a timeline. So we will give you pricing and timing. Step 3, we will start your remodeling project. And step 4, project completion, happiness and joy, right? Like, you're trying to get them to that point of transformation. And then they can click through to the real deeper process, which then fills in all the blanks, which most, in this case, it's a residential home remodeling business. Most homeowners understand that the process is far more detailed than that, and it's good to have the detail available. Another example is for an orthodontist. So step 1 is schedule a free consultation. Step 2 is meet the orthodontist and get a custom treatment plan. Step 3 is start your pain-free teeth straightening plan. And step 4 is reveal your perfect smile to the world. Right? You're trying to get them from where they are today to where they need to go. So show them clearly what it's like to work together, and it will reduce barriers and move them along their buyer's journey. So that's kind of how we approach it, Ken. Is that similar to how you guys approach it? It's very StoryBrandish because that's and duct tape-ish. Yeah.
Our approach is very StoryBrand. And I mean, a lot of people are like, but they aren't 3 equal steps. So it's like they don't have to be. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get people. And the reason I really I almost always try to stay with 3 is because if you add that 4th component, you start to add. You decrease decision making by 25%. Statistics show. If you add a 5th, it's another 25%. So you want to keep at the highest level. You want to make it easy for people to understand. Okay, all I got to do is this, and then I'm going to see this, and then I'm going to experience this. And when you can, boil it down and simplify it, and you paint that picture, which is what way too many businesses, as a matter of fact, the overwhelming majority of businesses do not do this. You're leaving your customer to kind of figure out, okay, how do I get started with these people? And if they don't see that and really understand that, they may go to your So having this plan on your page is critical. I don't know what this feedback is.
If I can comment, this is a little bit of a contradictory statement, but we like to have those every once in a while because we all have different points of view. I would actually say that that the rule of three does not apply to this. We use the rule of three for pricing because that is the decision making. We do not use the rule of three for bullets, for content, for process. Again, because data shows 7 bullet points is easily digestible by people, not 3.
Right.
So
Right.
I just wanted to make that clear because I wouldn't want people to misapply the rule of three because it really is based on pricing data and how people react to that they will more often choose the middle price, right, over all the other pricing. Is
Right.
that your
Well,
understanding?
that's a good point. I do see the process as a decision. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people to take that call to action. And so for me, process, I always try to keep it 3, no more than 4 ever. But I work hard to try to keep it at 3 just because it truly is getting somebody to take that call to action. That's the whole purpose.
Yeah. I just find it doesn't give you enough space for transformation. So that's why we tend to go 4.
Yeah, but again, not every stage has to be this. I mean, not every step in your process has to be the same level or size.
Right.
So,
and the point we agree on is that having the process on your homepage is vital.
Yeah, and I also agree. 3 to 7 is the ideal thing. That's what our human brains can get around. And so if you're going to have points on any of your pages, 3 to 7 is really, kind of that sweet spot. Human beings can process that amount of information. When it's processing information, when you're expecting decision making, I think you need to try to get it down closer to 3 if possible. So that's just my opinion. Paul, let's talk about what should go in the footer. And maybe even what your thoughts are in terms of what should go in the top nav, because we really haven't talked about that. Top navigation, I should say. How should it be laid out on the homepage? And, what do you do in addition to just like the menu and the footer to help people kind of be able to navigate through the pages? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as far as the the top navigation, we've talked about the scrolling pages, and people are very comfortable scrolling. It used to be that you wanted to put everything you could in the top nav because people didn't scroll down web pages, and that's just not the case anymore. You really want to keep your top navigation as simple as possible, and then we've talked about this a little bit. As you scroll down, okay, you have your services and those link out to a service page. You have your calls to action spaced down your pages as people scroll. And then in the footer, there was I think it was HubSpot did a study a while back that people actually do look at the footer because they're used to scrolling now. So, some of the things that should go in the footer is definitely your copyright notice should be in there and your privacy policy. You can put a sitemap in your footer. You probably want your logo in the footer. Your contact information should definitely be in the footer. Your social media icons should be in your footer. And that's something else. When we talk about call to action, social share icons, that's a call to action of sort. If you have an email, your email sign up form should be in that footer. Anything that's not in your top nav or on the pages you scroll down that you want that to be your important stuff, but if there's other things you want people to know about, put that in the footer navigation. But keep your top navigation simple.
So a couple of things there. One is you said the email sign up form. You don't mean the form, you mean a link to go get people, a navigational link in your footer to take people there. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, if it's a small form, you can put the form in because a lot of email sign-up forms is just name and email. And if that's all it is, yeah, you can put that in the footer.
For like a newsletter, you mean, right, Paul?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, what are you thinking in terms of what the critical elements to go in the top navigation are?
Call, book an appointment, your core services, your about page, because that's the thing. The about page is one of the most looked at pages on the on your website. So your your phone number, your other call to action, whether it's book an appointment or get a free estimate, contact us, because a lot of times I really believe in the self-booking calendars, but a lot of times when people go to a website, they're not ready yet. They just want information, and maybe they don't want to talk to anybody yet, and they don't want to book an appointment. They just want to get some more information. So that so a link to the contact page or contact form is good, and obviously you want your logo up there in the header, but that's kind of a no-brainer to me. But yeah, keep it simple, because like we talked about, people are used to scrolling, and if they know how to navigate websites, and the most important stuff goes in your header, keep it clean, and people can generally find what they need.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Ian, but I'm a really big fan of a simple top navigation. The best way to get people to take action on your website is to not clutter your top navigation and keep your one or two primary calls to action, phone number and maybe schedule an appointment, or estimate or whatever you might call it up there, and then just have the highest level pages that they might go to, but don't flood your top nav. I think that's a distraction that hurts conversion. And my experience is that people are very accustomed to going to the footer and using it as a resource tool to be like a quick navigational link to go find the content that they're looking for.
Yeah. And just two things. Make sure you're updating your copyright date, because everybody can see that. And if it says 2016, everybody thinks your website's out of date if they see that. The second thing is, and this isn't specific about an area on the homepage, but we haven't covered off, and I know we won't go into detail about this, but you should also consider if you have a way of of people acting immediately to chats. I'm less of a fan about chat bots these days and more of a fan about live chat. Chat bots would be kind of my second tier approach, but if you have a way of immediately responding to people, then put a chat bot on your website or a chat function on your website, because if people are not ready to buy and they're more comfortable communicating through virtual rather than on the phone, you might get some of your prospects to act in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, anything you can do to speed the response back from your website, whether it's a text-enabled phone number when they call and you miss the call, send them a text message back, whether it's some kind of a chat widget or a text widget that you put on there that again initiates a conversation and takes it off to that channel. I think that's a good thing. We've got one more question that Jen has got, so let's go for that.
This question is, what makes a good about page? Now, the about page on your website is about you. It's about you, the company owner, your team, your business, how you started. It's a chance for you to tell your story. And that's what people expect when they come to the About Us page. Who is this company? Who's running the company? What's their story? Why did they start? What makes them different? What keeps them going? That kind of thing. So it's a chance to get a little bit personal. It's a chance to speak in your own words. And it's a chance to really tell, your humble beginnings, where you came from and how you grew the company and where you're headed next. So the more personable and authentic you can be in the about page, and really let folks know what your business is about, why you started, why you keep going. If there was any kind of switches, you started out at a certain kind of business and now you've morphed into what you are today, why you made those transitions. This is the page that you can do it. And when folks click into the about page, they really are trying to find out, like, what's this company about? Who's running it? Why do they keep going? Who do they compete with? What's your story? And so if you can answer that in a compelling way, and 9 times out of 10, your origin story of your company is going to be very compelling, because most small businesses have a great little story of how they got started and why they're keeping going. And so use that about page to really get your voice and share your story. So don't be shy there, and let people know how you started, why you keep going, and why they should do business with you.
All right. Paul, Ian, you guys have any thoughts on about pages?
The one thing I would say, and I think she covered it in other words, but I would just say share your passion with people, because when I'm interviewing our clients about the about part of who they are as a business, and I seem to be a little jittery, I'm not sure why, but when you can draw out the passion of the business owner, or if it's a larger business, the personnel, like why they do what they do every day, what gets them out of bed, why they love doing it, that can resonate so well with the visitor and create an empathetic reaction, right? Where you want to create empathy, you want to create a connection and resonates with your visitors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a huge topic, and homepage is so critical. We could keep going on, but I know we're at our time limit here. So, Paul, Ian, any last thoughts or ideas that you want to share with folks? I'll start. I've got one. I mean, I don't think we really talked about this specifically, and that is, having video on your homepage is a really great strategy, because it keeps people on your homepage because they watch and consume that video. And, that's a strong signal that there's something meaningful when people are going to your page in the eyes of Google. So video content is really important. And if you can get a quality video on your homepage, I think it's a really smart investment. All right.
I would just add, this isn't the topic of today, but I would just add, like, if you can, obviously we as agencies put an awful lot of thought into how and best practices in how we build websites. And I think that differs from, a lot of different web designers out there. Not that they don't do a great job, but because we're coming at it from a strategic marketing stance. I think it's really important for the business owner, when they're considering a website redesign or build, to really thoughtfully approach this and try to find people that will help them achieve that, rather than just create a great looking website that may not perform well.
And that doesn't really say anything.
Yeah. Doesn't differentiate you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Paul, anything?
All I would say, and you kind of mentioned this at the beginning, that yes, design is important, but don't get so hung up on design to the point that you confuse the visitor and they don't convert.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to wrap this up. I would encourage everybody, if you like what we're talking about and the information we're sharing here, please go subscribe and write a review for us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And we appreciate your time and investment that you make to listen to this content. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.